Hello Animorphs fans, I'm here with GeekTruth. Say hi GeekTruth.
Hello.
And we are going to talk about the latest Animorphs graphic novel number 3, The Encounter. Do you have your copy ready with you?
I do. Right here.
Okay.
Hardcover.
So there is no format put aside for this. We're essentially just going to have a chat. So first question obviously is, did you like it?
Surprisingly, yes. This was the one I was looking forward to the least. I didn't... It wasn't very... I remember the plot being kind of messy, and with it being focused on Tobias. I don't mind Tobias, but what I remembered of this, I just didn't think it was going to translate well to the graphic novel. But surprisingly, I did like it. I think it read much better as a graphic novel than the second. Well, that's the first book.
I do agree.
The second book.
I actually, after reading this, I said in my review that I appreciate that book more now than I did after just reading the book by itself, without the graphic novel aspect of it thrown in. Even though most of the pictures are just Tobias being essentially
Existing.
Yeah, that's basically most of the pictures, but I think Chris Grind did a really good job of just making it so that every picture stood out on its own and matched what was being said, even though the Hawk doesn't have any emotions.
Yes. Yeah, I think it turned out better than I thought it was going to be, but my preference, there was some other ideas that I kind of wish he had done. It I think could have made it a little bit better. At least it would have worked better on the graphic novel side, on the comic book side of things, because it is a visual medium, and there are, even though he's not really changing the plots of the main books, I feel like that he could have played around a little bit more with the way that worked out. I actually had an idea, and I talk about it in my my video review, which is filmed and edited, but as of filming this, I haven't actually put it out on my channel yet.
So, what ideas are they, if you don't mind me asking? Or is that super secret?
Sure, yeah, so, I don't know how familiar you are with, like, Lovecraftian stuff.
Not really.
But, well, you don't really have to be, I'll just describe it. So, basically, I thought it would be cool if, when he's having these discussions, or when he's having these conflicts with the Hawk mind, if you actually saw a Tobias as a human, like in a big dark void, and the fight that he was having with the Hawk mind could be represented in different kinds of ways. Maybe you could have a bunch of hawks flying around in this dark void, or a giant, just like in the cover, have a giant hawk's eye up above him in this dark void, looking down and talking to him.
Sort of like on the front cover.
Yeah, like if you actually took the idea of him being swallowed up by the Hawk mind, and represented it a little bit more in that kind of way, I think that might have elevated a little bit more. But I don't dislike what he did. That's just my preference. I think that he could have done a little bit more with it.
Yeah, I quite like that idea you got there. So I'm looking at the front cover now, and incorporating that sort of theme more into those bits rather than the shattered glass effect. That's what you're going for. So I don't know how that ties into Lovecraftian, but I don't know Lovecraftian.
Well, Lovecraftian is basically the dark void aspect, and with this otherworldly being that exists on a different plane that's kind of talking to you. That's kind of the aspect that I would have went for. That's what I'm talking about when I mentioned Lovecraftian. Although, it doesn't have to be Lovecraftian. I just specifically mentioned that because I like Lovecraft. So
I think you'd run the risk of it becoming very confusing. But I suppose if it worked, it would have made it better. Not that there's much wrong with it right now, but I think that would have taken a lot of imagination, and he's only got 1 year.
Well, you got 1 year to make a difference. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have anything wrong with it, but I do collect comic books. I hardly ever talk about it on my channel, but I have thousands of comic books. I've been collecting comic books since I was a kid. So, I've seen lots of different panel layouts and that kind of thing. And in regards to it being a visual medium, any chance that you can get to kind of play around, especially since he's very constrained by the plot, I do think that could have given a little bit more visual variety in it. It's my opinion.
But I still think, regardless of that, we've seen a new strength emerging from Chris Ryan with this stuff. The fact that he was able to make this book better, even though pretty much everyone thought this would be, from what I know, that pretty much thought this would be a weaker book because of the fact that he was just flying around talking to himself. Chris Ryan has demonstrated something that he hasn't necessarily needed to demonstrate in the previous books, that he can turn what could otherwise be a very mundane scenario into something that keeps your interest.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. I mean, that was the main reason. I think we had talked about this last time we did a video together, and we talked about how the third book, neither one of us was really looking forward to all that much because we didn't know really what he was going to do to make it interesting. And so I was surprised with what he did, and I did like it.
It does make me worry about book 5 though, because my idea is that I really like this book because it gave me a new perspective on a book that I wasn't a great fan of, and it elevated that book for me. But book 5 is brilliant. It's one of the best books of the series. Can he make it equal to that or better, or is it more likely that some parts will fall flat and therefore the whole experience will be lesser than?
Yeah, it almost seems like you like this one more because of the bigotry of low expectations, because you went in with such a low bar. You're like, it was so much better than I thought.
3 is not a bad book. It's not. It's just the weakest of the original bunch, and the plot is, at the bookends of it, very flimsy. The middle bit is fine.
And the third book was the second book I read when I first got into Animorphs. The first book I read was actually the fourth book, because Cassie morphing Dolphin, to me, that was the interesting cover that got me to pick it up, was that one. So I'm looking forward to the fourth one because of that. But the third one, whenever I read it, I just remember it not being as good. I didn't enjoy it as much as the fourth one. Of course, I'm going into these books a little bit different, from a different perspective than you are, because you obviously have read these, within the last few years. I haven't revisited the series in over a decade, so it's been a while.
So that's more fresh to you, whereas when I read them, I know what's happening. I know what's around the corner, so there are no surprises. I'm looking purely at the aesthetics of it, and how much it matches that plot. And like when I did my review, I pointed out, this bit at the end felt more rushed than it was in the books, whereas in the book it felt like there was a good chapter between one point and the other, and in this one it's like bang, next page. Which to me, because I've read that book so recently and because I expected something, I felt underwhelmed when it wasn't quite how it was in the book.
Yeah, I'm going into it with, I still remember, if you ask me the generic plots of all of the books, I still I can remember if there's certain books I remember a lot better than other ones, mainly because I read them more than some of the other ones. But the third one, I just remembered being less interested in it, mainly as a kid reading it. I think one of the reasons I thought it was less interesting is because it was from Tobias's perspective, and he couldn't even morph. So I felt like, as a kid reading it, I was like, I'm just reading a book about a hawk. I'm going at.
Oh, you're cutting out there. You cut out. You still there? Internet's going again. My dear?
But can you hear me?
Right, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see it cut out on my end.
It's mine. It's done it a couple of times today where it hasn't gone, but it's just gone to 10% for 10 seconds or so. So I forget.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I forget where we were. We were talking about book 3 was underwhelming compared to the other books around it.
Yes, yeah, and like you said, book three is not a bad book. Just in regards to the first set of books, I do think it was one of the weaker ones. And as you said, I think because expectation wasn't the same going into the graphic novel, the visual medium definitely helped the whole inner turmoil that he's feeling with the hawk mind. So I think that worked well, a lot better than I thought it would.
I think, in talking in a more general sense and taking it back to just the series in general for a moment, I think books 2 and 3 suffer in terms of interest. And I think that's partly because, firstly, it's not book 1, where we get all those famous scenes, and it's between that one and the book where they get Axe and the whole team, as we all know it, is formed. So you're missing the Axe ingredient, which is pretty much throughout the entire series, apart from those 2 books. And I always look at those 2 books and think, I'm not really that interested in reading those, even though, like, 2 is a really good book, but I think it just suffers from being in that little gap where the team's not all there yet and the series starts.
Yeah, I don't think that their personalities are as fleshed out in book 2 and 3. In the first book, you very get surface level, but by the time you start getting into the second and third book, you expect the personalities to start, being fleshed out, and they really don't. They still feel fairly surface level in book 2 and 3, basing it on the graphic novel. Just like the reactions Jake has in this book, I was like, that doesn't seem in character at all, So
yes.
I think that's part of it too.
The only character at this point who I think is fleshed out to a good degree is Marco. Maybe Rachel a little bit. Tobias this is the book where his character is more fleshed out. Jake hasn't really got a character as of yet, and Cassie's still a Mary Sue, and Axe doesn't exist yet. So yeah, I think you're right. It's not quite all there yet. Over the next few books, it all comes in together.
Yes, and Axe plays a very important part. So like you said, by the time you actually get Axe on the team, I think he adds a very necessary perspective to the characters, and without him, it feels very strange.
It would have been a very weird series if Axe wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, they probably would have been stuck in Morph, like, by book 8.
Yeah.
Axe, I mean, I feel like they gave Axe that ability to, like, maintain time in his mind just so that wouldn't be an issue.
That's all that Axe was, really, wasn't it? It was just a stopwatch that would occasionally throw out a one-liner.
Yes, and then obviously that they utilized it more, his kind of split allegiance. They fleshed that out some more. But yeah, initially he's just kind of there for comedy relief. Initially,
He had some uses, I suppose.
I mean, his character in the TV show was that was the best episodes, were the ones that focused on him. So.
Or Boris. Marco.
Yeah.
Because he was a good actor.
Sure. You know what? Marco made the most sense in this book too, by the way. Marco was the only one. I was like, Marco, you were the only one who's speaking any sense in this entire book.
Yeah. Well, that's what, his character is fleshed out from basically the first book. I think they got him settled pretty soon.
I did a video where I fan cast an Animorphs movie, and I also did like character breakdowns in that video. And one of the things I said that me makes Marco one of the most interesting characters, especially early on, is when it first starts, he's really the only one who has had like a real dose of reality because of the way his mom, was killed, and he's being raised by his dad. You could argue Tobias too, because he kind of gets shuffled around. Yeah. But Marco's really he's everybody's like, hey, let's gung ho, let's do all this, but they don't really have the same context of loss that Marco does. So
you've just made me think of something. And would Tobias, in a real world, with his background, would he be the feeble little dweeb? Sorry, Tobias fans and Tobias himself. That he is at the start of the books. You think someone with such a rough upbringing would be a bit more fortified?
Yes, he would either be one of two things. He would have to be tougher, or he'd have to be smarter, right? He'd have to get smart really fast, or he'd have to get tough really fast, right? And they can't really make him tough because you already have Rachel who fits that part on the team, and you could argue that he's the smarter one out of them, but there really isn't anybody who fits that archetype either. So,
well, Marco is he's practically. He sees solutions to practical problems.
Yeah, street smarts.
Yeah,
that's what I would expect Tobias to have.
Well, yeah, because he doesn't really have a family life, so he's got in real life, if there's somebody who doesn't really have a family, that they don't tend to be very feeble. The feeble ones tend to be ones that are their parents spoil them. Their parents take too much care of them, and they don't know how to handle hardship, and they cower away from it.
Yeah, and I think that it probably would have been a better idea to kind of put him more in that. I feel like they just really. I felt like the way his character was initially envisioned was they wanted him to have like the saddest backstory. So he's so sad that's the reason he ends up making the decision like I'm gonna be a hawk now because my life is so bad. So they do everything they can and levy all of that on that character so that you can believe that he would make that decision.
Mm-hmm. So the character that I think should fill in a realistic world, who would fill Tobias's role, would be Jake. Because he's got a well-off family, but he's got an older brother that seems to be a lot more successful than him. And he doesn't really face any hardship. So he'd probably be the more sort of standoffish, not quite assured in himself type. Whereas Tobias, who's been roughing it for a while, would have more of a leadership ability because he's had to lead himself throughout his life. But that's
I mean, you could also argue Cassie as well. Generally, only children, they get more attention than families with multiple siblings. So you could also argue that, but obviously that character already fits another archetype, so they're not going to go with that. So. Yeah.
But that's what Animorphs is, and we can't change that. And honestly, I wouldn't want to change it because that's the story, and I've gotten so used to it. But yeah, in a real world, it would probably be a bit different. Book 4, the graphic novel. We're going to see Andalite stuff. We're going to see Axe for the first time. Judging by the Andalites we've seen already, do you think people are going to like the appearance of Axe?
It depends if they give him a larger rear end than Visor 3.
Or a whacking great chin. An absolute clobber.
Make his chin, if they go full on, Crimson Chin, or Jay Leno, I don't know. Like I don't know. I thought that with this book, Visor 3 appearing, I just wanted to see his eye move. I just wanted to see his stalk eyes move in a different direction.
Yeah, we didn't really get. Oh, did we get that? I think we did. Like barely. Hold on, I'm trying to find it now. Yeah, so I'm pointing it at the camera. They're still pointing up, but they're kind of turned.
What page is it?
175. The top right panel. They're still up straight, but they're looking in the same direction as his main eyes. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's almost like they're attached to each other.
Yeah, it's still not great.
I'm not going to count that. It doesn't count in my book.
And I've just realised how his nose looks.
Oh, did I ruin it for you even worse? Sorry.
Do you know what I'm getting at when I'm saying look at his nose?
Well, now I am that I opened it. I'm not going to comment on that.
No.
But I see what you're getting at.
Fucking hell. Right, Chris Grine. I love your graphic novels, but these Andalite designs are peculiar, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, the comment, and I think you mentioned this because I did watch your review yesterday, and you kind of mentioned it's kind of hard for them to change the designs.
Yeah.
Because he already started. I think you could tweak some of the designs though.
Over time,
and
like subtle.
Yes, and I honestly, if you completely changed it from one book to the other, most people probably wouldn't care as long as it's an improvement, right? Generally considered to be an improvement.
Yeah, I think that is that's the weakest parts of Chris Ryan's adaptations is the alien designs, which is a shame because it's an alien sci-fi series, and
I like his Taxon.
Oh, the Taxon's fine. It's the Hawk. I mean, the Hawkbajir look a bit better in this one compared to the first two. Their legs look a little bit longer. They look a bit more mobile. A little bit.
They just look very fat. They don't look like they could climb trees.
No.
So I mean, that's considering that's
the
main thing about Hawkbajir.
Yeah, and the Andalites. Visser 3. I dread to think what Axe is going to look like, honestly. But they shouldn't have chins like that, surely. That top panel. No human alive has got a chin that big.
No. And that's a very subtle fix that you could make, right? Yeah. Like that, and you could make his rear end not as large.
He's got a prominent jawline as well. So if you're looking at that page 175, you've got shadows cast below his what's that part of the skull called? Below his eye sockets, where typically you'd see the start of the jaw.
Yeah, because of the way that it's actually drawn, like, just looking at biology, why would Andalites evolve to have that kind of chin? There's no purpose there, right? Unless they had mouths at one point and then they were removed over time.
I don't believe they did, from what I recall.
No, yeah, it's not in the books.
I think he's too used to drawing humans. It's almost like he's got a standard human design. He thinks, they got a human upper torso, so he starts by... I mean, maybe he did this when he first did it. He can't change now, but draws that and just falls into a design habit when drawing a head. But not a big fan. Not a big fan of that. I will say that I really like the way he draws animals. I think that's obviously his strength. Yeah, that is. And the morphing is. I've just turned onto a page. It's both horrific and suitable.
Yes, I love it. I want to do I wanted to do like a video that just gave my awards to the best morphing panels across the 3 books.
Damn it! I can't do that now. That's your video.
I mean, okay. All right. I'll claim it, I guess.
I'll just do another video criticizing book 37.
Yeah, you could do that.
Oh, I've been recording a Halloween special just as a tangent, and there's an intro to it which features said book quite prominently. And I'm looking forward to putting that one out. Had a lot of fun recording it, but hey, that's I'm not going to give any more spoilers. How do you think Axe is going to look in the next book then? If we took Visser 3's body design, how do you think it's going to adjust for Axe?
I think that he might actually draw him more slender. I think he's also going to make him a lighter color.
I thought that as well, lighter blue.
Yeah, and I think I don't know size comparison how it is going to like. I just think he's going to look more slender on than Visser 3 does. But I just seriously, he's got to do something. Really stock eyes. Every time I see a panel, it's like, this doesn't look right, you know.
It's TV show static stalk eyes, isn't it?
Yes, it's like somebody on is a puppeteer and he's got strings and he can't move them in any direction, you know. They're glued to his head.
Anyway, I hate to keep harping on about the same point, people are going to start thinking we don't like the book, because I genuinely do, and it's just one of those gripes. I've got a couple of other gripes. If you go back to page... it is page... Jesus Christ. Page 3.
Oh, all the way at the beginning, okay.
Yep, and the top right-hand panel. Yep. What do you notice about the size of the hawk? The perspective is way off.
He looks like he belongs on Sesame Street. Like, it looks like a Muppet.
The bird.
Because, yeah, the bird looks like it belongs on Sesame Street, just because of how large it is.
It's way too big, and it's not a perspective thing, because judging by the chain's in front of the bird, and the man is adjusting the chain, so if anything, the man is in front of the bird. And the bird is the size of his head down to his hips. So,
yeah, that's a no. I actually just saw a red-tailed hawk last week, and it definitely wasn't that size.
Again, it's just a minor gripe, but yeah, that bird is fucking massive.
Well, here's a joke that I did in my review. I don't. If you turn to page 6, there in the bottom right, where you actually see Dealing Dan.
Yep.
Who does that look like to you?
I said Colonel Sanders originally, but let me have a close look at that.
I said it looks like Doug Dimmadome. One of the
Doug Dimmadome.
Yes, that's who it looks like.
Oh, did he have a Did he have a mustache like that?
It did, yeah. I've got my video almost completely edited, and I put that in a side-by-side comparison, and it looks almost exactly the same. Wearing the same white hat and white suit with the mustache.
Are we sure that Chris Grind doesn't just like watch Fairly Odd Parents and the designs just seep into his?
It could be. Well, I mean,
because we've got the crimson chin.
Yeah, if we see the bronze kneecap, we're gonna know.
The bronze kneecap. That was a quality show, wasn't it? Fairly Odd Parents.
I mean, considering I remember an obscure character like the bronze kneecap, even though I haven't seen an episode in over a decade, they did something right, I guess.
Well, I didn't remember Doug Dimmadome, but as soon as you said the name, I thought, yeah, I know that character. I know him. So we've got Doug Dimmadome, we've got the crimson Visser chin. Where's Timmy in all this?
No, this opening section, when I was reading it, I was just like, Rachel and Tobias are dicks. That's all I thought when I was reading this. I'm like, you are stupid. You are dumb.
Yeah,
like,
but that's a book thing. That's in the book. You can't blame it.
It is, but I mean, come on. Like what? Not just like outside the idea that you're destroying this man's small business. You're having elephants just randomly showing up at a car dealership. Does that sound like one of the dumbest things to do? Why would Andalites want to trample cars at a car dealership? Like, obviously the elephant is going to be presumed to be an Andalite if you're a Yeerk, right?
Yeah, but the kids are stupid at this stage. I think I spoke to you over text with this. I just said they don't have a freaking clue what they're doing at this point. It's not until book. Christ, when does it start getting serious?
Probably after 5.
Right? 5 is probably the turning point where things get real.
Yep.
But
I mean, you're right. I mean, it is a good excuse, but at the same time, I'm just like, this is just really bad. Plus, on page, and I commented about this in my review too. On one of these pages, I can't remember which one it was. He says he doesn't have insurance, so the guy legit lost his entire dealership because they wanted to free this hawk that they could have just gone in the middle of the night and done it.
Well, it's his fault for being a dirty southerner.
Well, yeah, I don't know what's with that either. They did that in the second book too. In the second book, they had Chester. And I made a joke about Chester when I reviewed the second graphic novel. And, I mean, look at that. Look at that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it.
Because it wasn't like that in the books.
Yeah, so I don't know why they went with that, or why he continually does that, considering it doesn't take place in the South, and I've been to California, there's not that many Southerners.
Yeah, I mean, if the
California.
lines were in the book, then yeah. But he changed the lines so that they were more Southern. It was a deliberate decision on Chris Grine's part to make them Southerners rather than Californians. It is very strange.
I don't want it to sound like I'm like nitpicking it. I mean, it is nitpicking. Obviously, I like the book, but I do have critiques of it. It's like anything. I mean, it's a given the things that we like about it. We've already talked about it. So now we're just kind of getting more into the things that we didn't like. No.
Yeah. Well, it's easier to talk about that because I liked this bit. Yeah, I liked it too. Right.
Yeah.
Where
Right,
it's easier to criticize than it is to heap praise upon something.
Yes.
Which
And
is the unfortunate way of things.
Yeah, especially when you can't fairly talk about the story and the characters because he's doing an adaptation.
Exactly.
Because I can talk about story and characters and talk about what I like and get more in depth with what I like, but since that's kind of off limits in that it's already established and it's just an adaptation, there's really no point talking about it. So.
I've just had a thought as well, going back to Fairly Odd Parents and trying to, move it on from the negative stuff as we talk about to something more neutral. Who was Timmy's friend? Yeah, Timmy had two friends, didn't he?
It was Chester was one of them.
That was the one with the long blonde hair?
Yeah, with the braces. And was it AJ?
Might have been, yeah. Did he have like a checkered shirt, Chester?
Yeah, he did.
And long blonde hair?
Yeah, so I get what you're getting at.
There he is.
Like Chester.
The theory is proven. Where's AJ? Oh, Cassie must be AJ. Because AJ was... he was black with short... No, he had a shaved head, didn't he?
Did, yeah.
Maybe he'll turn up.
Well, one thing that Chris did do with this book, and I think he started doing it in the second one, was actually gave Marco a more distinct haircut so you could easily tell them apart. I remember when I was reading the first book, I was like, Rachel and Tobias look fairly similar when their panels are together. There's like very minor differences, like earrings.
Yeah.
They like look almost exactly the same. And Cassie and Marco is the same, especially with the close-in panels. It was like, I don't know who you are, you know?
Yeah, I'm looking at them now. Marco's haircut.
Yeah, if you look at the part where he's yelling at him on page 21.
Of which I'm looking at.
Oh, that's on a book 3. Yeah, if you
21.
Are you looking at the first book?
Yeah. So his hair's down. It's like swept foot to the sides and forward, whereas in book 1, it's all stood up.
Yes. Yeah.
And his hair's growing longer, I assume, as time goes on. So by the time he gets to book 6, he'll have long hair, I imagine. I can only speculate, of course. I wouldn't mind that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think the designs are becoming more unique now. It would have been a struggle with Tobias still looking like Rachel, but of course that's not going to be a problem any longer, is it?
Exactly. And I said that when I had my critiques of the first book. I was like, this bothered me, but I guess it doesn't matter because we're not going to see his human form past book 1 anyway.
If Tobias didn't become a novelet, then yeah, it would have been a problem. But Chris Grine obviously thought, it's going to be one book, we're hardly going to see him in human. He looks a bit like Rachel, whatevs. But yeah, I think he's done. It's easier to tell the characters apart now, and I think that's very good. And he's getting better at doing the characters as well. So that's a big positive.
I mean, there is one thing. I don't want to get it back on the negatives because we're trying to transition off it. But there is one thing I have to say, because to me this was the worst part of the book for me personally, was the way that Cassie's barn looked.
Yes.
I hated it. like all the critiques I had were just like, I could preference based. No, I legit did not like the way Cassie's barn looked. I thought it was really bad.
Yeah, I didn't either, because I looked at some descriptions of Cassie's barn, and it does talk about things like hay bales everywhere, and dust and bits of straw all over the floor.
Yeah, and they sit on hay bales, and almost every time they're at the barn, they talk about sitting on hay bales. I didn't see any hay bales there, and I've been in many barns. I've never seen one look like that. No.
Well, I don't want to, stereotype, but we're talking about Californians. They probably never ever seen the inside of a barn before.
Well, you're not wrong. I mean, it looks like it could be the back end, like if they were at the gardens. It looks more like that. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I had to make a double take when I was watching it, or when I was reading it. I was like, are they at the gardens? Where are they at? And then, because I thought that I missed something, and I was like, wait, that's supposed to be the barn?
Yeah, we got an overview of the barn. So on page 31, you get a shot of the barn from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very detailed picture, so you can't. There's nothing in front or behind it. It's just a wall of colour on either side. It is a strange-looking building, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the outside of the barn looks fine. I mean, that looks. It's just the inside that.
Where's the rafter? Because you got the hole where Tobias comes flapping in. I mean, there's a door at the top, but that's closed, and that's massive. And it's really high up. You know,
I don't. I'm not. I don't like it. The more I look at it, the more I don't like it.
It is. Yeah, the TV show got it right.
Yes, the TV show is getting points as we go through these books.
I did actually the other day. I thought, and I'm sorry everyone for saying this. There are aspects of the TV show that I quite enjoy, and certain moments do give me those Animorphs feels. And then the next scene will typically ruin that, but there are little glimmers of greatness in there.
I like the TV show. I like, not sarcastically. I like it. Objectively, it's not good. I understand that, but I like it. There's certain episodes, like I'm not gonna say, like, no matter how many times I watch the episode where I can't remember. I think it's the one with Axe and he eats the chili that Marco's dad makes. Like every
Yes.
time I watch that episode, I laugh.
It's a good episode. And I actually watched that yesterday. Episode 8. I think it was episode 8, and it was all about Axe. And the scene that got me thinking, actually, I quite like this, was when he's talking about Ciro's kindness towards the end. I thought that was actually done pretty well. And then, of course, the final line of the show threw it all out the window. But for a brief moment, it was like, yeah, they did it all right.
Yeah, because he basically, he's like humans don't, like, cause you don't know anything. You've been around, not at all. You've hardly been around. What do you know?
Yeah. But yeah, the TV show got the barn right, I think. It was this old, wooden, dusty-looking place with hay bales everywhere, wooden stalls with these animals in them. Whereas I don't know what Chris Grime was thinking when he did the barn, but it's an aesthetic thing, and it doesn't play much into the plot. It's just going to be whenever we see a barn scene, we're just going to have to sort of grit our teeth and think it's just a barn. It's just a freaking barn.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd almost rather them have other conversations out in the open at their video game in the mall, that video game place in the mall where they had all their conversations during the show.
Was it you who said that maybe this is just an extension of the barn and it's not the main bit? Was it you who said that?
I don't know if I said that or not, but I don't know if I said that to you or not, but I was thinking that. I was thinking maybe it was in the back end, because the way that they show the barn, it could be the back end of the building.
Let's go back to that page. So I think we see them walking, don't we? No, we see a bunch of bikes parked outside. The main doors are closed, which could be a clue, but we'll just have to wait and see. We've got 3 more confirmed graphic novels coming up, and a few more.
You don't see the barn doors in that scene there, so you could argue that that main part of the building was the existing barn, and this back end of the building was an addition to the barn, and that's where this tile and all this nonsense is.
Did we see the barn in any previous book? Where's the part in The Invasion where Cassie morphs horse for the first time and the policeman comes?
I think that was outside. I don't think you actually saw the barn in it.
Yeah, I'm looking through it now. So it's not that bit.
So, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that if that is an additional part of the building and it's on the back end, that's their animal rehabilitation part of the building, and they have their, I don't know.
Okay, so
I'm just trying to come up with an excuse.
I'm at the scene now, so we've got the picture of Cassie's farm with the barn in the background. They're sitting outside of the barn. You can't see inside. There's
what page number is it?
Oh, so you got the book in front of you. Look at page 94. 93, 94. So, well, firstly, the barn's changed design. Look at page 93. The barn is missing like a bit on the side.
Yeah, the back end. But I guess you could say you couldn't see it from that perspective, but.
Right, so I'm turning back to where the frick is? Where's Cassie's barn gone in this book?
On book 3.
Book 3. What page? Oh, it was on 30 or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 30 something.
Look at page 31 at the design of Cassie's barn.
I mean, the front end looks accurate. You can't see the back end of the building in the first book.
Missing the shelter on the left-hand side.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So he's changed the design of it. He's put a shelter on the side. The rest of it is pretty much spot on, but for whatever reason, he's added a new bit of structure. Which is strange. Why has he done that? Maybe he read ahead and saw that there was a car or something, and he thought, oh, better put that there.
It could be. I mean, every time I look at it, I can't stand these tiled floors.
Yeah, but if you look at, in book 1, The Invasion, page 93, you've got the clear barn doors, but then where they're sitting, it's like they're a different style of door entirely. Page 94, you can see behind Jake, you can see the type of doors they are. Pardon me, this is getting really nerdy, isn't it? We're looking at freaking door designs on the barn.
Yes.
But that's what we're here for, isn't it? To be freaking nerds about this stuff. But yeah, they're completely different style of door.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a different part, and I hope so. I hope in the next book, is there a barn scene in book 4? I don't think there is.
So yeah, I mean that looks like that's just like a side entrance here. At least that's how it looks here in the first book.
Yeah. So if that's the case, I'll take it all back. Yeah, you can have your side room. You can have that. So long as we get a main freaking barn bit, I'm happy.
Yes. Yeah. As long as I see some actual hay bales.
We need hay bales. We need that shit.
Yeah. Just look up some stock images of barns and trace it. I don't care.
But yeah, we're getting totally nerdy now. Totally nerdy.
Well, yeah, that's
par for the course.
That's geeks in the name. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's kind of how most fandoms used to be.
We're bringing it back, old school.
Yeah,
complaining about the stupidest, slightest little detail, even though it's completely unnecessary.
No, it's not complaining. It's commenting.
Right. Yes.
It's commentary. You can also call it critiquing.
Yeah, that'll do.
Because if you give an alternative, then it's a critique.
That's a smart word.
If you're just saying, wow, that sucks, and then you don't explain why it sucks or how it could be improved, that's complaining.
I like your thinking. Right, so there's 3 more books confirmed. So we are going to get them, unless something catastrophic happens. I'm pretty sure they're coming. They're coming our way. I wonder if we'll get more than that. You don't think so, do you?
No, I think they'll probably do 6, and I think that'll be it. I think that if the intent of the books was to do anything beyond just for fans, if the intent of the books was to actually bring in a newer audience, you have to put out way more than one a year. Because imagine if you're growing, you're like in elementary school, right? And you've never heard of Animorphs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're in fourth or fifth grade or whatever. You're like, and you get the first book, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. I can't wait for the next one. You're in 5th grade. Then you're in 6th grade, and you're in 7th grade, and you're like, I read these things in a couple hours, and I gotta wait a whole year for the next one.
Yeah, well, they are
It's just
increasing
not
the speed.
sustainable for building a new audience.
They are increasing the speed.
I
But
wonder if
what
that's
does that
'cause
tell
he
you?
created a backlog.
Backlog.
Yeah, like if so in other words, he's done most of the books, or he'd been working with to do all the books nonstop, and then they released it once a year, but all the while he was creating the backlog so that he could.
I don't believe that's true, because he does post regular updates on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I don't do that.
He didn't.
So I don't do the Twitter, so
He
I didn't know that.
Because he's as soon as book 3 came out, he started saying, right, now I'm going to start working on book 4, and he's posting like sketch work from book 4. So yeah,
Well, I mean,
it's not like he's done a backlog.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that you'd have to do that. He had to have a backlog if he's actually trying to pump them out faster.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in regards to, again, I collect comic books. Most comic books had, well, not current comic books I don't collect, but you know, when I used to collect them, they had monthly releases of a comic book. It was about 32 pages. There was obviously some ads in it or whatnot, but it's 32 pages each month, and some artists require more than time to get those out, but they still want to hit their monthly releases, so they bring on guest artists to do their own style, or sometimes to try and mimic the main artist on their style.
Like ghost writers.
Yeah, you could.
Well, we know how that turned out.
No, it's not a ghost writer, because you do know that they're not who the actual artist is, and it says that on the front. Yeah. But you know, basically they bring them on so they can maintain their schedule, and because you know, it does take a while. Like, it does take a while to create the amount of art required to do one of these. So like, I'm not saying that he's taking his time doing them. Like, 1 year is what it is. I mean, that's probably how long it takes.
And he doesn't have 1 year, because you got to get it all printed, you got to get it all checked. So I don't know what realistic time, but I can't imagine it's more than 8 months that he's got.
It could be. I mean, like I said, I feel like he probably had maybe a backlog. Like, in other words, he was probably mostly done with the second one by the time the first one came out. That's what I would guess.
That's not the impression I got looking at, unless he's faking it on Twitter. But,
well, I mean, it could be sharing stuff and saying, hey, you know, this is where we're at now. But I mean, he's also got to keep in mind when it's actually coming out. Then again, I don't know how. I don't know what he's been posting, so I mean, you would know better than I would.
I think we will know what's happening before book 6 comes out. Before that one comes out, we'll either know, right, they've got more scheduled, or they haven't scheduled anymore, so that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and I mentioned this last time we talked, and I mentioned this in some of the other Animorphs videos I did talking about this. I don't think doing adaptions of the first books, it's not my preference. It's not what I would have done with these books. The intent of these books is to give something to the fan base. I feel like one cool thing to do would have just had a poll, and people voted on what books they wanted to see adapted. Because if the whole purpose is just for the fan base, then it would give them what they want. You know?
It does bring up the dreaded question of, is it working? Bringing in new viewers. Because I haven't seen any.
No, that's what I was saying is if the intent is to bring in well, they tried to do that when they did the new covers and they re-released the series. When was that? Like 8 years ago?
2011. It's quite a while ago.
10 years. Okay, so it's been a while. You know, and whenever they did that, I mean, that didn't seem to work either. So I don't know.
We still await news on a potential movie. We haven't been told it's not happening.
I know, but I told you when you asked me last time. It was almost a year ago. I was like, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be like the Mr. Negative, but I mean, obviously, I collect movies, I watch so many movies, and I follow movie news, and based on what I've seen, I don't think it's gonna come together.
Well, maybe that's.
I hope I'm wrong.
Maybe that's in the long term. Maybe that would be a good thing because let's be honest, if it's being produced in Hollywood, we've seen the sort of stuff that Hollywood produces.
Yes, unfortunately.
It would probably be a disaster.
Yes, and they'll probably change things around, and it probably won't work. I don't think it would work so well as a movie anyway. It should be a TV show.
Yeah.
My first Animorphs video I ever did on my channel was 4 years ago. I did an Animorphs video and I said, hey, this is 5 reasons why Animorphs needs to be a Netflix series. And like one of the things is you need a series in order to kind of give the screen time to the evolution of the characters within a season of television. One movie is just not enough.
I've started watching a series called Firefly with my wife.
Yeah, it's behind me on that shelf.
What year was that released? First series.
That one came out. It was in the early 2000s. 2000.
Because that looks good. Like all the ship stuff and all that from that long ago. Even like a sort of mid-budget production could come up with something far better than the old TV series that we got.
Well, right now in Hollywood, there are not enough VFX artists. There's a massive shortage of VFX artists, and they're being overworked and quitting projects as a result. And so there's way more demand than there's ever been because of the amount of content that gets made. So that's part of the reason why, even though Firefly was made 15 years ago or 20, well, I think it's about 15, maybe 20 years. It's been a while. Like the stuff in that looks better than a lot of the current TV shows is because they don't have, the VFX artists don't have the same, they aren't paid properly, in my opinion. Yeah. So,
slave labor. Chinese sweatshops.
I was about to say it's not quite, sweatshops, but they do get overworked and they're underappreciated. So.
I still think, I said this a while ago, don't bother with Hollywood. Look for independent companies. Sure, they might not have the same amount of money, but they still do something.
And I would say make it. I said this to begin with. Like, make it animated.
Yeah.
You could do you can do so much more, like for less money.
But the thing is, are there enough Animorphs fans to make up the numbers in those businesses who can do it? That's the question, isn't it? And who could collaborate?
I think that's also, it's probably part of the reason why these are coming out, and why, after 10 years, it was about 10 years since they tried to redo it before. I think it's just to gauge audience and interest.
Yeah.
And they like every, 8 and 9 years, they'll do something else with the series to see if the interest is there.
Yeah. I mean, they did originally plan 3 books, and then shortly after the first one came out, they scheduled another 3. So that, if anything, is a positive.
Yes, I don't remember reading or hearing as far as why they didn't continue it. The only thing I would assume is that they weren't selling. I mean.
Oh, we talk about the 2011 reissues now. I'm talking about the graphic novels.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, the reissues were, I mean, the new covers weren't great, and there was nothing new. At least with the graphic novels, it's a new format. a new way of telling the story. Those reissues were just that.
Yes, like, I like these. Like, this is, I mean, outside of the main series, I think that these graphic novels are the best thing we've gotten. Like, it's far better than it's better than the TV show. It's better than the Transformers toys or the Taco Bell's toys, or anything else that we've gotten from Animorphs Auxiliary 2 main series. So
yeah, that I like that you said that, because that is a very good point. This is probably the best thing that we've had since the books. What if the authors just decided to write new books, bring back the old covers? Because let's face it, how has Animorphs stayed relevant at all?
Memes.
That's it.
Yeah.
It pops up quite a lot. The Animorphs covers, they're everywhere, and people remember that. So if the authors wrote new books and splashed new covers like that on again, maybe that would spur some interest. But then again, how do you continue the series in that same vein?
Well, this is something I mentioned in my review of the third book. One thing that could have been interesting is with the graphic novels, if Chris Grind did his own stories that took place in between the existing series.
Yeah, possibly. A
You
side
wouldn't have the
story.
same, yes, like side stories, or, you know, less relevant to the main plot. I mean, let's face it, most of the books in the main series could be considered filler, so why not just put more stuff in that timeline?
Yeah, it's possible, but I don't think the authors would be that interested in doing it. I don't think that... Well, and I don't think they can anyway, because Scholastic owns it. So what am I saying? Scholastic owns it. They are in charge. And if they don't want to
that's
do
what
that...
I mean. Like, they could do whatever they want. I mean, if Chris, you know, was like, hey, I'd like to do the Animorphs series, and I want to adapt a random book. Like I said, book 26 is one I would love to see. Like, if I could only pick one book from the main series, 26 would probably be one of them, because I think that would look very interesting visually.
Yeah.
It has a lot of combat scenes. I think that book would work really well.
Go on then, to finish off, which of the main books, apart from 26 now, because you said that one, which ones do you think would be great in this format out of any of the books? So we've got 26. Let's do top 3.
Probably
18.
18 would be good. The David trilogy would be solid. Although it would have to be several books, you couldn't condense those 3 books into one graphic novel.
Yeah,
There's too
that'd
much
be
stuff
the
that
problem.
happens
Yeah, I think the Decision would be good. That's when they go to planet Lyra, and they end up on the Andalite ship whilst floating in Z space.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Maybe book 7 when the Elemis is introduced.
Oh, I'm not a great fan of that one. But then again, maybe the graphic novel will make it much better for me.
Yeah, I'm more approaching it from what I think would benefit from the visual medium, right?
24. The Helmicrons.
Yeah, that would be fun.
They're shrunk and they're seeing like cells around them.
Yeah, as long
That'd
as
be
you
wacky.
as long as you don't do the second Helmicron book.
Yeah, don't even mention that one exists. Don't bring it up in conversation. The Mutation would be pretty horrific. In a good way. That's the one
is that the one where the Ox?
Nope. No, it's the one with the Nartex. The one with the Ox or Buffalo is the Hidden, book 39. 36 is the Mutation. That's where they find Atlantis, basically, and they find all these ships with mannequin sailors on it.
I just found an extra copy of that book in my old boxes. For some reason I had 2 copies of that one. I don't know why.
There are quite a few books that would be really good in a graphic novel form. Really challenge Chris Grind, but also give him a big field to play in.
I mean, I know one book that would be interesting visually, but you hate it. Andalite Chronicles.
No, that's the one I'd least like, probably.
Visually,
I mean,
it's interesting.
even the weakness I would prefer over the Andalite Chronicles, because imagine the weakness in graphic novel form.
Do I have to?
Mate, it could turn that book around. It could be it could be a hero. It could iron out the really shit parts. Just change little bits here and there, and maybe bring it back from being a total waste of space and oxygen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real discussion, though. It's because these are adaptions. How, like me, I want to see him change up more than what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah.
So, because I feel like there are some improvements you could make to most of the books with minor tweaks that don't actually change the overall story.
Did he in the original book? Did he change the bits that were screw ups that were changed in later books? So when Tobias said that he could thought speak to Jake when he's morphing dude, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Did he iron that out?
Yeah, I don't think that was in there. I don't remember that anyway. I did see one error in book 3 though. Well, it's not. I don't know if it's an error, but something that I thought was very strange. It's I can't remember what page it was. I'll have to get with you offline and ask you if it makes sense to you.
Right, so here we go. Can you hear me? Jake thinking. Maybe it only works when you're morphed. I just thought something at you. Did you hear me? No, I don't think it works like that in the Animorphs as well. So in book 1, he did change it from the originals. I know that in the reissue, was that changed in the reissue? I don't know, but I don't know. Maybe Kruskon will surprise us, and in book 4, they're about to swim away with Axe, and then suddenly Axe gets blown up by the blade ship. Who knows?
You know what would be, I just thought about this, you know what would have been an interesting thing is if the Morphing Cube did give them the ability to thought speak while they were in their normal human form, but they never knew that. So, like they never knew they could do that.
Nah, that sounds so, that would be bullshit. I wouldn't buy that for a second.
Well, I mean, it is kind of strange that it only, like the morphing ability, they have it regardless if they change into an animal or not. So the ability to have a mouth to speak shouldn't negate the ability to have thought speak.
The bit that I found annoying was when Axe would say that he couldn't thought speak when he had morphed to human because that's the normal way of human speaking. That was bullshit.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what they want you to. It's kind of the logic that they give as far as why them in human form doesn't have thought speak.
But then they talk in thought speak when they morph Hork-Bajir, so...
Yes, because Hork-Bajir can speak. So...
Yeah, it's another one of those inconsistencies, but that's the series we know and love.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it'd be like if you morphed a parrot and you're like, well, I can't thought speak because parrots can talk.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
So that's why I'm just saying it would be interesting if the whole time they had thought speak in human form and they never knew it. I could argue that.
I do want to play around with ideas going forward with the channel. Just one thing that I want to do is just look at the run of books from, say, 36 through 40. And just make it all match up, because the books have like plot points that should connect but don't. So I want to look at that and say, right, how can we actually make this run of books linear and connect to each other in the way that they just don't, because the ghostwriters didn't talk to each other.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting, because like you said, there is a certain point in the series with the ghostwriters that starts to feel like it's filler.
Individual books, not actually continuing the plot points throughout them. Yeah. I mean, I do also plan to do a video. I plan to do a video about fucking everything with this series. I do want to do a video.
That is your channel.
Just asking, yeah, basically, just asking the question: was the Ghostwriter era really that bad? Because obviously it gets a lot of stick.
No. I would rather have the ghostwritten books than not have them.
Yeah, I agree totally.
I mean, because if you remove the ghostwritten books, the series gets cut in less than half.
Yeah. Unless you count the additional books, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how many books were put out you know, at that time, you know, 99, 2002, you know, that's a lot of books that came out in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, it was.
Oh.
Yeah. But if,
and you
if it weren't for the ghostwriters, we wouldn't
that.
have got Kim Morris, who did 4 or 5 books, and they were all brilliant. She was an incredible writer. She did 38. Which ones did she do? 48,
I wish
50,
my movie shelf
52.
is back there. Or my bookshelf's back there. I wish I had it in front of me so I just pull them off the shelf.
So I know that she did 38, 48, 50 and 52. I know that she did those 4. And they were all stunning books.
Oh, she did 52?
Was it 52?
I thought that they had switched back over to the main writers by 52. But
No, that was
you would know better than I would.
53, I believe. I think 53 is when the Catherine came back.
Okay, so she just came back for the final 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but Kimberly Morris had a few near the end, and they were all absolute corkers.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'd much rather have the ghost written books than not.
Yeah. And you just get the occasional duffer. 37.
Yeah. Oh, to kind of backtrack into your what else would probably make a good book? Book 16. I think 16 would be good.
Really? Why that one? The warning.
Yeah, but because well, that one stands out to me the most because it was the 3rd book I read.
There you go.
So I guess it's just more what I would personally want to see. It may not necessarily be the best one, but I really like the ending of that book. I like the story, and
It is a good book.
it's one of my, as far as in regards to those main covers, it's one of my favorite covers out of the 454 books.
This is the Rhino one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a good book. I think it's one of those underrated ones as well.
Yeah, it's in my top 10.
Right.
So.
I think we've safely covered graphic novel number 3 and discussed future stuff. My camera's going to die soon, so I'm trying to draw it to an end.
I can't. My camera that I use for filming my actual videos cannot be used as a webcam, so that's the reason I got to use my built-in webcam. And it looks like garbage, but
So I'll spice it up, put a few things flying in the background.
Just pretend like it's J.J. Abrams and put a bunch of lens flares everywhere.
There we go. That'll do it. Well, that was smashing. I really enjoyed that conversation, and hopefully next time we have it, we'll be talking about the upcoming 7, 8, and 9. I doubt it's going to happen by next episode. But yeah, we look forward to the next one, which is we have to wait another year. But I'm sure we'll do another collaboration video at some point, maybe.
For sure. I mean, whenever Chris shares the cover for book 4, maybe I'll tinker around with it again. I don't know. I actually do like this more in hand than I liked it initially. I think it looks a lot better in person than it does on the picture.
Yeah, certainly better than his alternate cover.
Yes, which I didn't even know there was. I saw your video, and yes, I do agree. This is better than that one.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, and thank everybody for watching. I hope you agreed and disagreed with some of the points we made. You know, it's all a point of discussion, critique, because we're nerding over this stuff. Barn Doors, for example.
Nice critique. We like the book, people. The book is good. We like it.
Yeah, go buy it. Go buy 2 copies, because if you do, then maybe we'll get more books. If every Animorphs fan just buys 10 books, just 10 of each, then Scholastic will be like, well, look at this. We've increased tenfold the number of books we sold with this one. They must be popular. Can we do that? Would that work?
Yeah. Or buy a hardcover and then buy a paperback.
And then buy 5 more of each.
Versions.
Would that work? Would that actually fool them into thinking that they need to do more?
Well, yeah, on the manufacturing side, they're not going to track unique purchases. There's no way to do that.
That's how we're going to do it. If you've got the money to do it, go out and buy 10. Now, seriously, Seriously, go and do it. Go back and buy the other ones as well. Let's just buy so that they sell out, so that they've got no more, and they're like, well, what do we do? That's
And
my
if you don't know
advice.
what to do with all your extra copies, donate it to your local library so other people can read it. Maybe they'll pick up the other books that aren't at the library.
Yeah, do it. Just do it all. Spread the word and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. My camera's going to die, so I'm going to have to bid you adieu. It's been a pleasure talking to you again.
You too, as always. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.